Good afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Afreeqa with your host Qetselawork. Today we have a rather exciting guest for you. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to our studio.
Thank you very much.
Could you please introduce yourself?
My name is Rocky Duwane. I am a musician from Ghana, and also I am a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador for Environment for the continent of Africa. And myself too, a very advent activist within bridging the gap between the people of our continent and also our Afro-descendant brothers and sisters.
What got you interested in working for the elimination of plastic due to its causing much damage as a pollutant?
Well, first of all, before I got to plastics, it's more about the environment. All of us grew up in some kind of environment, and that environment was part of nurturing who we are. The environment was a place where, its health also resulted in our health. And so when I was growing up, and even in my artistry, I felt that, as a musician and also as somebody who had a platform, you always have to see how you can utilize that in terms of for social impact and also to contribute to the wellness of your community. So I became very interested in environmental issues because a healthy environment also is a healthy and strong community. And as we know, in Africa, and especially in my hometown, Ghana, the issue of plastics is something that doesn't even need to be articulated. It's very obvious. Everywhere you go, our oceans are being choked with plastic, especially single-use plastics. The water bodies, have microplastics that are disintegrated into the plastic. So even when you go into the water systems, you find plastic there. It's choking the gutters. It's really a total eyesore, and it has a lot of impact too on health. So when I realized that, and in my capacity too as a UN Goodwill Ambassador, I saw that this is an area as part of my environmental advocacy to focus in supporting the United Nations and also trying to also bridge the gap between policy and ordinary people and communicating as to individuals' responsibility in making sure that we arrest this situation. So that's what has been of great interest to me, because this is an issue that it will take the collective effort for us to get rid of.
Absolutely, I do agree. How did your environment work concerns first get recognized internationally?
I think that the environment work got recognized internationally. It has always been part of my musical message. My musical message was about amplification of consciousness. It's about the individual aspiring to their best self. It's about the individual recognizing themselves as part of a bigger world and working in order to advance the cause of the collective. So in doing so too, we know the environment and nature and the land is our most important gift, and we are stewards of this. So our responsibility is to make sure that what has been passed upon us, we take good care of it for other generations. So for me, it was a cornerstone of my mission. It's a cornerstone of my message. And as I became more knowledgeable in terms of the extent to which human impact has happened on it, it also became a central point of my communication to try and bring people's attention to it.
Now we can get into the arts. Since, you are actually initially here in Ethiopia because of this.
Yes.
Before I actually get into the arts, I would like to know, during the meeting that you had, I think it was the 19th ministerial...
Yes, the 19th AMCEN conference, yes.
Yes. I know it's very hard to ask, did you come to a decision? But what was the overall conversation about? And going forward, what is it that's going to be done?
For me, the AMCEN conference is is happening at a very important time, because an important time where, because it's a convergence of environmental ministers from all across the continent. And then also at a time when the environment and issues of climate and all of these buzzwords that are going on around have risen to the fore right now. So talking about our environment to Africa, this is the time to when we know that our land is even becoming much more, our focus on the land is becoming much more important, because we have a thriving youth population around the continent. So the way we manage our land and the way we utilize it for our next stage of development is going to be very key. And all these key decisions have to be taken right now. So I even feel that the environment ministers are actually one of the most important ministerial roles, despite the fact that everybody focuses on, other stuff like finance and all of that. But those who make the decisions that has to do with land, the management, and also protection of all of these assets are very important. So to see them gather here at a time when globally there is so much talk about changes in ecosystems and, also forest depletion, and the need for Africa to also have a unified voice, I felt that it's a pivotal time, because our decisions and what we do has to be reflective of who we are as a continent. Because when we even look at the plastic issue, the plastics are a source from the oil and gas industry. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of even weight and pull in that direction. So many leaders are influenced in terms of what decision they are going to make based upon whatever their political affiliations are. But we have to make sure that these decisions are not based upon the influence of other voices and other interests, but are done to make sure that we are protecting our continent as a people. We are preserving our continent as a people. So my observations that I've had, I had opportunity of, attending some sidebar events where I spoke, especially the issues of open waste burning, which is a critical problem, especially in my country, because, you go to various places that, people burn waste, plastics and everything, and they don't even understand the environmental impact of it. People are using chemicals in terms of agriculture, and they don't even understand how all of this goes right into the water systems and all of that. So all of these things are stuff that are happening in the society, but ordinary people don't even see the impact because the knowledge base is not readily available to them. So for me, being at the conference, listening to a lot of our leaders, make presentations, and also seeing the concerted effort that we're trying to forge a unified stance to that is genuinely African, wholesomely African, and also in the interest of Africa. For me, I think it was an encouraging step. And also, I like to also move away from the doom and gloom aspect of the climate advocacy, because everywhere you hear it's about, the earth, this thing destroying, going, we have only this number of years and all of that, and fear mongering on all of that. I am a messenger of hope. So my role is to also be part of the environment where the technical people can say what they want to say, the politicians can say what they want to say, but my role is that people will always survive and thrive. So if we are able to personify some of these issues and let people know what their responsibilities are, then they can be able to carry forth and then be the ones that the solution will come out of. If it's a people-based solution, then I know that we will eventually overcome it. So I'll say that I learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot, and it will be amazing to see where I take whatever I've learned towards the future.
So what do you think is the primary role of the Pan-African artist?
The role of the Pan-African artist, first of all, is in terms of their authenticity and genuineness. Because first of all, Pan-Africanism is to be able to observe the world through the spectacles of Africa, to be able to observe and interpret what is all around you through the foundations of, our people, and also to be able to see an Africa that is not based upon the geography, but a much more spiritual concept of Africa. That is, its people who are geographically here, and also its people who've been removed from here through slavery and so many, and immigration and all of that, who live in various parts of the world, like the Americas and all of that. The entire ecosystem of Black people. So the Pan-African artists need to be able to understand the ecosystem and the expanse of the Black experience, and be able to utilize, their platform to articulate the visions of some of the founding fathers, Emperor Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, Kwame Ture, all of these luminaries who did a lot of work to try and create an identity for Black people. So the role of the Pan-African artists is to be able to educate themselves about this, and at the same time to be able to transform it into a language that is modern and current, and also accessible to today's people, and utilizing today's tools to make sure that their communication is effective.
You once described your journey as sonic empowerment. Could you expand on that, please? It has a good sound to it.
Well, sonic empowerment is that, music is a divine language. Music is an expression of the soul. Music is a language above languages, because through sound, even in the Bible, let there be light. It was through sound that nature came to light. So we have to understand and then even when we look at, I always like to use the example of King David. It's like, if we subscribe to the Judeo-Christian model, King David was the king of Israel, but he was also a musician. And so through the music and all of that, he had a good conception of how to be a good communicator of people. And that's why he aspired to lead the divine, kingdom of Israel. So sonics are very important when it comes to dealing with human emotions, and understanding the power that is innate within the music and melodies, and being able to become a conduit of it is also becoming a conduit of nature itself, becoming a conduit of the voice of God itself, as long as you allow yourself to become a channel. And so for me, as a musician, I feel that when you submit to that power and become somebody who soaks every cultural sounds, every music of nature, you go to every place, you try to get into the sound, what moves and what's the fundamental sound that's part of the culture and all of that. You create, you become a mouthpiece too for all people. And so that's why I describe myself in that way, because I'm just a messenger and a conduit of this.
Well said. How easy or hard is it to create art which is appealing not only across generations, but across cultures as well?
I think that it's all a matter of being genuine about it, and being truthful about it. The thing is that truth endures, and once you remove yourself from out of the way and try to, speak your truth, or create something that you feel that it's impactful and has a good message, and has it's rhythmically and in every aspect very powerful, I feel that it also, you to some extent tap into the intentions of the universe, and in doing so, there's a certain eternal aspect that becomes part of that creativity, So for me, to create that transcendence is a matter of being able to submit to it and work as hard as you can and put every effort that is humanly possible in it. And then if it is coming from a place of genuineness, I think that starts to become relevant throughout time and throughout every generation.
Who are your influences in music?
My influences are diverse when it comes to music, because I also come from a traditional background. You know, my family, we come from a traditional chief's house. My father and my lineage was chiefs. My older brother is now the chief of our people. So we're always preservers of the culture. So the traditional music and dance of my people, traditional music of Africa, was my first big influence, which, as we know, is not revolved around a personality. So it's more in terms of, it's a cultural influence and inspiration. So that was one aspect. And then when it comes to the contemporary sense, I was inspired by personalities and musicians, you know, so the knowledge and philosophy and opinions and of Haile Selassie were a very important influence on me, because also the foundation of modern Africa, the foundation of modern leadership of Africa, who were the post-independent leaders, were all influenced by what Ethiopia represented. So that's one major influence, and spiritual influence too. And then Kwame Nkrumah, you know, Ghana's first president, Pan-Africanist, and also a visionary of a unified Africa, great influence on me. Mahatma Gandhi of India, because I really subscribe to his vision of ahimsa, and also in terms of, you know, using the tools of non-violence, you know, as a proactive tool for to demand and manifest your intentions. And then, you know, musicians like, you know, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Fela Kuti, traditional artists from Ghana, like the African Brothers, Nana Pedu, who were high life musicians who influenced me. So it's very diverse, you know, influence of personalities and people. And I think they all shaped me as the artist that I have become.
So here we come to Ethiopia.
Yes.
Is this your first time? Is this your first time?
No, this is not my first. This is actually the second time.
Okay.
Yeah, the first time, you know, I had always wanted to come here growing up, because my mom used to always tell me a lot about, you know, the visit of, you know, Haile Selassie and, you know, African unity and, you know, the early founding fathers. And then as I grew, you know, and as a musician too, I also appreciated the role of Ethiopia in the history of Africa, because for me, Ethiopia is a foundation stone for Africa. You know, it's a place where we can still find the purity of who we are as a people. The uncolonized version of Africa is existent. You know, despite the fact that most of Africa has been touched by and has been tainted by, you know, colonial influence. So you have to dig sometimes very deep in order to find that. But Ethiopia represented the unconquered Africa. Also the spiritual headquarters too of Christianity. The spiritual headquarters too of African Christianity. Also their organization too, that was, you know, a line of kings that you can date back to as far as possible. So it showed the ancient aspect of African history, which a lot of times is not articulated in modern Africa, especially, you know, the colonized parts of Africa, where most of the history seems like you know, it only started with colonialism. Yeah, when, you know, we're influenced, you know. So when I got here, there was so much interest for me to come here. But then that happened in 2018 when I traveled and came here with a group of spiritual leaders, like different faiths, who came here on on a mission to the African Union. So I was invited as a musical and cultural voice to come with these leaders. So we came, and then we had the opportunity of traveling around Ethiopia, and then we went to Lalibela. And for me, that was also something that I was looking forward to, because to come into Ethiopia and get to go to Lalibela and really, be in the presence of, such a miracle, of in any sphere, whether it's architectural, spiritual, and truly an African miracle too, was something that was food for my soul, And so that trip was amazing. And then this is the second trip.
Wow, Lalibela is amazing.
Yes.
I couldn't move when I got there. I could not move.
Yeah.
Because we always see the picture, and you really don't know how it's going to make you feel, but when you're actually there, it's a whole other ballgame.
Yes, I see Lalibela as the power of faith, what the power of faith can do. So it's like, if we have faith and we have hope and we have that belief, there's a transcendence that's come from the human power becomes divine power. And I feel like that is what Lalibela, the beauty of Lalibela is, to see this enormous, amazing ode of connection of man to God, being created from a rock that defies, the normal thinking person. Is because it was an inspired place and an inspired piece for all generations to see and keep their faith stronger.
Could you paint a picture to our audience, your experience of growing up in the royal family of Bourbon?
Yes.
How did it impact your daily life? You touched a little on it, but...
Yes. Growing up from a traditional royal family, the thing was that luckily for me, I was not right in the middle of, because my father was the last born of his family. So he left the traditional settings and moved and joined the Ghana military. So I was born on a military barracks. So the thing was that my father, during certain times when the military had breaks, would take us to our traditional home, and we would be in the ecosystem of the family and all of that. But what it gave me perspective. So first of all, here you are as a child of a soldier in a very controlled environment, very disciplined environment, very, shall I say, militaristic, yes, environment. And then at some points you move into very traditional environment, cultural, spiritual, also it came with a lot of empathy and compassion, because that is what leadership comes from. And it's to see my uncles, who were the traditional leaders, and how they dealt with their everyday life of engaging with our people also. So it gave me, a very balanced aspect, a very strong-headed, disciplined side, and at the same time too, a side too that is compassionate, understanding, spiritual. So I think all of those informed in my artistry in a very positive way.
Yes, it actually sounds so beautiful. When did you know musical activism was your calling?
The thing is that, like every calling, it's something that comes the easiest to you. So I remember at a very, very early age, I had the natural knack to, when I hear melodies, or songs on radio or anywhere, there was like a certain pull, and I just knew it innately. And every time I heard songs, they were simple. It's almost like they disintegrated to their simplest forms to me, even at an early age. So I understood that this was my calling. And I knew that this was also a path that, if I was disciplined enough to focus on and work, this is the place of where I could get my biggest growth, And so I saw it as, my true calling. And, I knew also that music is also a gift. So that gift to, you're not supposed to hold it and utilize it to self-serve, like the trappings of fame, that you want to be popular because you want the spotlight and all of that. That's not the kind of artist that I felt. I felt that music was more a mission for me to utilize that, to see the world in a certain perspective, become a voice too for issues that I feel needed attention, become a voice for the underprivileged, become a voice for the voiceless, become a tool too of bringing people together, and then also a conduit too for inspiration. So I think that all of those things are what led me to activism, because it's music in motion, and it's also utilizing the power of music too for social and spiritual impact.
You were nominated for a Grammy Award.
3 times.
Right. Let me not forget that. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that question. You got nominated for the Grammys 3 times. Should the Grammy be considered important for African artists?
I am not of the view that awards are I'm not of the view that awards are the objective of creativity. Awards are a product of creativity. You see, so if we fixated that we're doing music just because we want to win a Grammy, then we've lost what it all means. And even when you look in history, the greatest artists who made great impact were never awarded, right, because they were not structuring themselves. But in the modern sense, in terms of when you think of marketing, you think of all of these things, positioning yourself, they become important because it's something that when it attaches to your name and attached to your what they call musical brand, it gives you a certain positioning that allows you to access, something that will advance you as an artist. So I always tell artists that, focus on being the best in what you are doing, and focus on also being innovative, be fearless in your innovation, and also make sure your art is also speaking your truth. Don't, because of awards and because of fame, everybody starts doing one type of music. Some of the African music becomes that, you know what I mean? There is so much diverse music, but then there's one style comes and everybody's playing, and it's just one way and one way for a culture that is so diverse. Exactly. So I feel that sometimes, the urge to be famous and the urge to have a certain magnitude of impact can pigeonhole us and stifle what our creativity is. And I feel that that's also what happens when we think that our creativity is ultimately validated just because of an award scheme. No, it's validated when I feel that when our social impact is much more bigger. I believe that the biggest award is when the gift that God has given you is utilized purposefully for the advancement of your brothers and sisters. That is the biggest award that people should strive for.
In your various prestigious venues and stages as a Afro roots artist, do you try to educate the audience about Africa? And if so, how?
I believe that by the nature of how you present yourself, you're able to communicate better than preaching. In my interviews, I can talk about my ideas in a very broad sense. In my music, I can create an energy and a feeling about Africa. I can utilize that to empower the energy of being African, the pride, the uniqueness of who we are as a people, the power that comes in our unity, the importance of all of us to strive beyond our ethnic and cultural blessings into becoming a much more forged whole, So I utilize that more rather than try to impose that as something that this is what you have to do, and I'm standing on a podium and this is my proclamation. I try to make it more in terms of you create a space. I call it spiritual and cultural osmosis, for the lack of a better scientific word, because you create an environment, and that environment to people aspire to come and be part of that environment. And so in doing so, to everybody takes a piece of that environment, and you communicate better that way. So that's how I utilize my art to really push the philosophy of concept of Africa, because Africa's survival and Africa's future lies in its unity. And this is something that I believe that we have spent so many years, and because our unity has eluded us and we are becoming a much more divided people. We divide each other based upon our cultures. Our cultures are a blessing. But because I'm from one culture, or I'm better than this person because they speak this language, and then it gets politicized, and then everywhere you see, we are turning against each other. But these things are something that we should celebrate each other rather, and utilize it as building blocks for our unity, because through our unity, we've been blessed with everything. The most dense DNA diversity anywhere you can find. The land with everything, future technologies even have their sources here. Ones that are and ones that will become all have their sources here. Water bodies, fertile land, young generation, all of these elements that have positioned us to become the leaders of modern humanity. But at the same time too, we allow forces that are not in our interest and who are not interested to see our powers, to take advantage of our thirst for and our greed for power for just ourselves and our cliques, in order for us to destroy the vision of all. So I try to use my music to show us the light as a guiding light for the place where we all should aspire to go to.
One Africa.
One Africa, yes.
Do you believe music transcends borders and cultures? Is there a trade-off between representing locally and crossing over globally?
Music transcends borders and cultures because music doesn't have a border, and music is culturally, shall I say, it's a culture upon its own. It's a combination of cultures, because it's an emotional and spiritual culture, So, and when you go to every culture, you find music at the heart of it, At the end of it, when you're done with everything, you go dance. Like even being in Ethiopia here, like the dances, I've been working on my shoulders, and trying to get like all my moves right, like I was like, okay, my Ghanaian moves, I can still get in there, but I have to work on it. And then the singing and the dancing and the movement. So that is, and it transcends, because when you even see a performance of traditional music and you look at the audience that is international, everybody's dancing, everybody's reacting to it without even understanding the language. So there's a connection that defies nationality, defies language, defies geography, defies ethnicity, defies political viewpoint. So music is the first deepest connect, because it connects to the core of our humanity. So it crosses every border. It crosses every nation. And if it's truthfully intended for elevation of people, it becomes the everyday aspect of every culture, And then the second question, there are trade-offs because, these days technology allows you can be locally global.
Right.
Yes, because you can utilize the power of technology to amplify whatever you're doing locally. All you have to do is, go live where you are, and then everybody will be joining in from the internet from everywhere. So technology and the times have allowed music to be local. But when people like myself started, that was prior to the whole viral aspect of music. You had to work in different sections in order to create a certain momentum, and then you utilize that momentum and translate it to other places. So there's always trade-offs, because sometimes you have to spend time in one place in order for you to create real roots, you know. So that's why touring with music, you know, you go, you leave your traditional environs for 2-3 months and be gone and be traveling in different countries and different places, trying to bring the music and connecting with people and spreading the music over there. By the time you come back, you have to kind of rail things back again and do. So there's always trade-offs, but it's also a means by which you're shifting the energetic aspect of the music from one place to the other. And doing so too, you end up really amplifying it even greater. So there are trade-offs, but I feel that the trade-offs are not things that you lose, you know, if you are focused on constantly innovating and constantly advancing.
Is there room for more artistic work in terms of bringing various diasporic strands of Africa closer together?
Yes, because when people from our brothers and sisters, when they were taken away from the continent into different parts of the world, what really stayed and connected them to us was the music and the culture and the arts. I had a privilege just a few days ago doing a concert in Brazil, in Bahia. And it really dawned on me also as to the presence of a deep sense of African culture there. And even variants of African culture that you don't even see in the motherland, you know, because they had to hold on to a piece of Africa throughout their history in order for their cultural survival. And so that makes arts and culture the key connector and the key language of conversation, and also the unconquerable aspect of our people, because that is what stayed, kept them alive. And it has morphed in different ways and different, you know, different, should I say, manifestations. So arts provide the opportunity for bringing it all back together, connecting all of it together. A conversation that, because it's transboundary and transnational, it's also a unity of our intentions can be realized through the arts, through sharing of the arts, through the different types of art that we influence back and forth with each other. So art for me is really the primary tool for, you know, connection of the diaspora to the motherland, and also an active and living way of keeping that connection alive and advancing that connection.
Would you describe the current era as a brand new chapter in African music, or do you consider it more of the same?
Well, the current era is promising. Yes, it's promising. But like everything that's promising, I have seen authenticity diluted and converted into a commercial, product to, first of all, diminish the identity of the people, and also as a cultural psyops to also adapt, to culturally deprive the people. So we have to see it as a two-edged sword. So we have to see which side that, because in the opportunity also lies vulnerability. Because our music right now, all of a sudden, because of technology and all of that, it's becoming more and more present in different places. An African sound, what do you call it, Afro beats and all of that. But we have to be careful too that it doesn't become some kind of repetitive caricature aspect of what Africa sound is. And it's going to be defined by algorithms and also at the offices of record labels that are not ours, that are outside, that this is the African sound. And then it's piped back, and then all the youth follows that. And then the content of the music is most important too. What is the music saying? Is the music, because I've seen not to condemn rap music, but I've seen rap music in America, that has, been used to, to encourage gun violence, and also depreciation of the value of women, black women, and all of that kind of stuff. So music can be a tool for both upliftment or also distraction. So we have to see this as an opportunity, but we have to make sure that the music is saying something. The music is diverse to represent who we are. The music is also authentic enough to represent our own narrative and not in terms of someone else's idea of who we are.
Very important narrative, our own narrative.
Yes.
We've come to the end. This is going to be my last question. If you can believe it, we went down 18 questions. Is the African work of art and artists competing globally in a satisfactory way?
I think that it's not being given the due, because African art and African music and innovations by people of African descent has been the foundation of popular culture all around the world. But once it gets to a certain point, it becomes culturally appropriated, and then the blackness is extracted out of it, and then it becomes a form of popular culture that devoid of its origins. So in that sense, I feel that the due is not given, but I feel that the more that we have a lot of Africans still, relentlessly, showing, pushing and creating innovations in the art space everywhere, then the more our voice becomes too loud to ignore, and our innovations become too visual to be ignored. So I think that it has not been, there's a lot of room for elevating, African art globally. And, there's a huge rise in African art right now. A lot of African artists, when I was growing up, I remember, being an artist, nobody respected. Your mom will see you drawing and it's like, you gotta be a doctor. Don't be drawing, your son is drawing, oh my God, you take away everything because you don't want them to get too much into art. But now African artists are selling huge pieces around the world, being showcased in the biggest and most prestigious museums around the world. African musicians are playing on the biggest stages around the world. African innovators, chefs, creative figures are making impact and breaking new grounds all around the world. So there is a big attention now in terms of the world embracing African creativity. And I think it's also a matter of the accessibility that technology has provided us to be able to present it on a scale too that the usual gatekeepers and curators could not be able to curate it in their own favor. Now, the general public around the world also can have access to see it. And so there's an elevation of it. But like everything, we have to be very careful about it, because once it becomes, and I've seen that happen to, musical forms, from rock and roll, which started as black music. Now, it's not assigned to black music. Even elements of reggae music even is happening the same way, And, you see it in various places where, the black musicians and who were innovators in that are not even part of it anymore. So we have to be careful of the cultural appropriation of black creativity. And I think that once we are conscious of it and also protect and preserve what is culturally ours and honor it without letting it go and letting others take, then we are now taking advantage of our fullest potential.
So, of course, they always say a question brings another question.
Yes.
This will be my last.
Okay.
And the reason why I put this towards you is because a lot of the things that you have said basically leads to that? And I have a feeling your answer will be that. But the question is, do you think we can unify Africa through music?
Yes.
Thank you.
Because that is the only language that
We can all understand.
we can all agree to. You know, we can all dance to the same tune.
Exactly.
And we are very cultural people. You only have to go to any African village and see that the music and dance and culture, when it starts, everybody's, there's unity. There's smile, there's happiness, there's oneness. So the politics is not what is going to unite us. The politics even sometimes amplifies the divisions. But what brings us together is the culture, the music, the sense of belonging to each other. And I think that music elevates our spiritual connection to a point where African unity, I believe that at the core of it has to be spiritual, you know. And also understanding that you look into another African's eyes, whether they're from Ethiopia or they're from the Congo or from Ghana or Togo or Brazil or anywhere, and all you see is a brother or a sister. So the unity will be through the people, and music is the connecting glue, the conduit by which that unity will be made possible.
I would like to say thank you for
Thank you.
giving me this time.
Thank you.
This is your host, Qetselawork and your Pan-African show, Afreeqa. Tune in on Saturdays from 4 to 5 on Arts TV. Thank you.